When scientists found this guy, they thought they had discovered the ancient ancestor of Nylon. When the archaeology team dug this whole fossil out of the red sandstone, the entire site went dead silent. The lab was terrifyingly quiet, without a single cheer or celebration, just a weird and oppressive silence. Because what lay right in front of them completely blew paleontology common sense out of the water. This absolute unit was 6 meters long and weighed close to 4 tons. On Earth 270 million years ago, this was hands down the biggest predator on land. Oh wait, he was not a predator, and that is exactly the craziest part. Such a massive monster had a tiny head of only about 30 centimeters. Can you guys even imagine having the body of a pickup truck, but a head the size of a soccer ball? The proportions are so absurd it makes you want to laugh, but it made scientists want to cry, since its skull was just 1/100th of its total body length. This is totally unheard of among all large land animals, and at that moment paleontologists realized they were dealing with a creature that defied every known rule of survival. You guys might be thinking, this gotta be a dinosaur because it has dragon in its name and looks wild enough to be a distant cousin. Too bad guys, he is called Bybelong, but he has absolutely zero connection to dragons or any relation to dinosaurs whatsoever. Blame it on his freakishly huge nostrils that took up 2/3 of his head, leading scientists to slap this crazy name on him. But this naming actually misled countless people, and what is even more mind-blowing is that this dude showed up on Earth 45 million years before the dinosaurs. While Bybelong was just chilling and strolling across the Permian land, the ancestors of dinosaurs were still hiding in some random corner. Bybelong was the literal king of the land back then, and nothing dared to mess with him because nothing could bite through his 4-ton body. So here is the million-dollar question. How did this thing survive with such a tiny brain? And the answer is he evolved an insane survival system. First off, look at his belly. His whole torso was basically one massive swollen cavity, and scientists measured that this giant gut took up over 70% of the total body volume of Bybelong. Imagine 70% of your body being just intestines. The digestive tract of Bybelong was probably over 20 meters long, which is about 2/3 the length of a standard swimming pool. Put simply, this guy was literally a giant walking fermentation tank. So what did he eat? Ferns, horsetails, and seeds, which were the most common low plants in the Permian period, with nutrition levels so low it was insane. That is like us trying to survive on cardboard every day. But Bybelong was not a picky eater, and with his leaf-shaped serrated teeth, he was like a walking food processor. He had to scarf down 30% of his body weight every single meal, meaning Bybelong ate twice as much as a full-grown elephant eats in a day. Then he would spend over 10 hours just munching away, spending most of his 24-hour day doing nothing but eating. But that is not even the craziest part. The wild thing is he had billions of microbes in his gut working day and night, breaking down those tough plant fibers bit by bit, making his entire digestive system run like a massive 24/7 biological factory. What does this mean? It means Bybelong cracked a huge problem that plagued all large land animals back then, which was how to get that massive just by eating grass. Before him, no land animal could pull this off, and now let us talk about those crazy big nostrils of his. Latest research shows this was not some random evolutionary glitch. Nope, it was a finely tuned organ, making paleontologists wonder what the heck a nasal cavity that huge was actually for. Right now there are 3 main theories being hotly debated, with the first camp believing it was a super smelling system, allowing Bybelong to track food from miles away and sniff out the pheromones of its buddies. A guy with a pretty useless brain somehow evolved a killer nose, while the second camp calls it a natural AC unit since the early Permian equator was hot enough to crack rocks. The massive body of Bybelong generated tons of heat it could not get rid of, so the giant nasal walls evaporated moisture to cool down the hot air coming in and pumped the chilled air right into his body. A 4-ton mountain of meat stayed alive thanks to 2 cup-sized nostrils, beating human air conditioning by a solid 270 million years. The third camp goes even bolder, claiming it was a natural resonance cavity, allowing Bybelong to blast low-pitched rumbles across the vast wasteland to communicate with the squad. A monster with an outrageously tiny brain might have actually evolved a primitive vocal social system, keeping paleontologists up at night just thinking about it. Because the next discovery totally shattered the whole academic world when scientists dug up dozens of Bybelong skeletons all at once at a fossil site in Oklahoma. Not just 1 or 2, but dozens packed tightly together, which was a nearly impossible phenomenon back in that era. The vast majority of Permian animals were lone wolves, but Bybelong was already living in herds, and even weirder, scientists noticed a pattern where the biggest guys always walked on the outside of the group, acting like a literal meat shield to protect their smaller buddies in the middle, meaning an animal with an orange-sized brain already knew about pack protection and team spirit, which paleontologists call straight-up unbelievable. Fast forward to the late Permian period, about 252 million years ago, the darkest disaster in Earth history hit when an unprecedented supervolcano eruption went off in Siberia and lasted for tens of thousands of years. Massive amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfides were blasted into the atmosphere, causing global tong to spike, oceans to acidify, and oxygen levels to nosedive, turning the whole planet into a giant gas chamber. 96% of marine life got wiped out, along with 70% of land vertebrates, practically deleting life on Earth. But there is one detail that scientists still cannot explain to this day. What is the standard script for a mass extinction? Disaster strikes out of nowhere, animals die off in droves, fossil numbers fall off a cliff, and then they are completely gone. But that was not the case for Bybelong, whose disappearance was not some steep drop-off, but a long, slow, and steady decline, taking nearly millions of years to go from their prime to totally extinct. In other words, Bybelong did not just drop dead all at once in some disaster, they were slowly worn down by something bit by bit over a massive stretch of time. Was it a gradual drop in food, tougher competitors, or did that perfectly fine-tuned survival machine just finally run out of gas? Nobody knows, and that is the final mystery Bybelong left for us. But looking back today, we gotta admit that Bybelong taught humanity the deepest lesson ever with its 20-million-year run. He was not the smartest, the strongest, or even the most fierce, but he outlived everybody and ruled an entire era. How did he do it? By totally adapting and turning himself into a survival machine perfectly sensed with his environment, never being a picky eater, never being lonely, and never wasting energy on useless stuff. And what about us? Our brains are hundreds of times bigger than Bybelong. We built cities, invented airplanes, and blasted signals deep into space. We are the most powerful life form on this planet, but at the same time we are doing something Bybelong could never do. We are actively changing the climate of the Earth, pumping out greenhouse gases, cutting down forests, and polluting the oceans. And scientific data shows that today greenhouse gas levels are shockingly similar to the data from that Siberian volcano eruption 252 million years ago. The Earth does not need to be saved, since it has already survived 5 mass extinctions and bounced back every single time. It is us who need saving. The soccer ball-sized brain of Bybelong had no way to see its own extinction coming, but we do. And that is probably the heaviest test Bybelong left for us 270 million years later.